Back here in HQ, and it is time for Jamey's start of the week. Zach Charbonnet, hello, how you doing? It's him for week 3 with Ken Walker out dealing with an oblique injury. In week 2 at New England, Charbonnet came through for the Seahawks, and a lot of fantasy managers, including myself. I was just bragging off camera during the commercial break that
you never do that. You never.
You're right. I'm very humble. I'm a very humble fantasy manager. He got me almost 18 fantasy points. Threw him in the lineup, came through because I trusted you guys with my life, as I always do. Against the Patriots, he had 14 carries for 38 yards and a touchdown. Walker, of course, is not expected to play in week 3 against Miami, so of course that has a lot to do with why he's primed for a big week here in week 3, Jamey, and your start of the week.
And a great matchup. You know, so first off, keep an eye on the injury report. Want to make sure that he's out, and then we get Ken Walker's out, not Charbonnet's out.
Yes,
Charbonnet's out. Then we really got a problem. But yeah, Ken Walker's out. It's a great matchup. Look, the Dolphins have really struggled against opposing running backs so far, running games so far. You know, Jacksonville, it was Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby going for over 100 yards combined, scoring a touchdown. We saw James Cook Thursday night, multiple touchdowns. Ray Davis did some nice things as well. This is the Charbonnet show, and I think he's going to have a big game. The Dolphins defense probably on the field a little bit more than we usually see because the offense is going to struggle with Skylar Thompson under center without Tua Tagovailoa there. So this should be another big game for Charbonnet. Love his work in the passing game, 5 catches last week, and that should only continue as long as Walker stays out. So let's let Ken Walker rest and let Charbonnet go have a big day.
And we've seen teams run all over the Dolphins. You talked about that just a second ago. It's 22.5 carries per game that the Dolphins have seen. And so I think a few people are hung up on Zach Charbonnet. Well, is he really that good of a running back because he's the backup in Seattle? Forget about that. It's the opportunity. If he's going to get the ball 22.5 times, and that's going to be just on the ground, he's going to come away with good numbers.
Yeah, it's all about the matchups, right? Let's talk about your other starts, and it feels like a bit of a theme for Cincinnati. They have a slow start starting 0-2, but regardless, with the matchup against the Commanders, Joe Burrow is a quarterback to start for you, Jamey.
Seems strange to have to tell people to start Joe Burrow, but his start percentage is rather low by comparison to where he was drafted. So this should be a blow-up game for the Bengals. You know, we've seen this Washington defense, 467 passing yards combined to the stellar duo of Baker Mayfield and Daniel Jones. They combined for 6 touchdowns in the first 2 games against Washington. So I think it's a great setup for Joe Burrow. He's top 5 quarterback for me. DeAndre Swift has been absolutely miserable. But still have the Colts run defense, and they're down to Forrest Buckner now, so they've given up huge games to Joe Mixon and to Josh Jacobs. Swift is not in that caliber, but he can be a number 2 running back for this week. I just hope he stays in the job as the lead running back because you're hearing some rumblings that they want to give Khalil Herbert some more work. He did score a touchdown last week, but I think Swift is safe as a back-end RB2 if you do need some help with that position. George Pickens got Surtained last week. He's going to escape Patrick Surtain and in a much better matchup. And really, as good as the Chargers defense has been, that's telling something because Surtain has just obliterated all receivers. I'll tell you why in a second, why we're sitting Mike Evans. But in any event, I think you should expect a big game for Pickens. I hope it's a back-and-forth game a little bit. Not expecting it because Vegas says it's going to be low scoring, but if we have to see a few more pass attempts, the target share for George Pickens is going to be through the roof. Minimal targets, but the target share, this is the only guy that Justin Fields has to lean on right now.
You know, if Pickens had, let's say, 57 more yards and a touchdown last week, nobody would be thinking about sitting him. That's what he had called back on plays against Patrick Surtain, by the way. So I think Pickens is in line to have a very big game. I like that call.
Okay, and Dave, we're getting to your starts. Of course, we have a couple of Saints we got to talk about because it's Derek Carr and Rashid Shaheed. A no-brainer that we're starting these guys?
I think these Saints are no-brainers. I think they're for real. The first 2 weeks of the season, this offensive line has been great. That's been the impetus for Derek Carr to confidently throw downfield a lot more often. And this is a Philadelphia secondary. They've allowed some big plays to wide receivers so far this year. Shaheed's been that downfield guy for the Saints, and he's had a 23% target share. So you kind of have to overlook just the number of raw targets he's had, and you see that he's still a very crucial part of this New Orleans passing game. I think the Saints are going to beat Philadelphia. I think Derek Carr will be a reason for it. And you see DJ Moore on this list, kind of like what Jamey was saying about Joe Burrow. You can't believe that DJ Moore has to be told, yeah, you got to start him. It's a huge opportunity. He had 10 targets last week. This Colts pass rush, big question mark. Secondary, even worse. They've given up some big games through the air. I think DJ Moore finally has his first big game of the season. We don't want Keenan Allen to play. He'll get double-digit targets if Keenan Allen does not play.
That's my question. If Allen does play,
I still like him, but not as high as I'm where I'm at. Like right now, I think he's like a top 15 wide receiver, but with Keenan Allen there, might be more of like a top 24 type guy.
It's been tough for the Bears. I mean, you look at what they had to face. But even so, I mean, Tennessee, I think everybody looked at it and said, easy matchup, right? It's going to be a layup for his first start. That's a very good defense that's gotten revamped over the course of the offseason. And the Texans defense was always going to be a tough matchup for him. This is his first opportunity to breathe a little bit, you know, and so he's seen the speed of the NFL. As Dave said, pass rush different. Secondary different. This is a big opportunity for him to establish himself as a legit NFL quarterback.
Yeah, it's always tricky with the rookies, right? Because week one, I know not at the quarterback position, but with Marvin Harrison Jr., we were all panicking. Oh my God, we should sit him.
He looked terrible. In week two, he looked like Marvin Harrison Jr.
Almost 30 fantasy points.
Yeah, same thing happened with Malik Neighbors.
Right. Really quickly on your sits, you have Zach Moss, who hasn't been doing much for me lately.
Moss is a start.
I'm sorry.
He's a start.
In my mind, he's a sit.
No. So it'll depend on who else you have.
Fantasy managers too.
Yeah. So a lot of fantasy managers, they're nervous about Zach Moss. I love the matchup this week against the Commanders. Devin Singletary just had a monster game against them. He's been leading the way for the Bengals on the ground. 11 snaps played inside the red zone. 3 snaps for Chase Brown. By comparison, Brown doesn't even have a touch inside the 10-yard line this year. Brown has a bunch.
And
Moss has a bunch.
I got a lot of grief for taking Zach Moss over Chase Brown. And I feel like
so far it's working out. But I think it'll switch down the line.
There are plenty of backfield scenarios where we're going to see the backup take over for the starter at some point, and I think that could happen because Moss just has a hard time staying healthy.
Yeah, Amanda.
Did you say you have Zach Moss?
In a different league.
Oh, okay. I was like, I have Zach Moss.
No.
Jacqueline plays in 15 leagues.
No, I'm in 3. I'm in 3, okay, which is already too much.
We're corrupting Jacqueline is what's happening up here.
I started with 1, now I'm at 3. Next year I'm going to be like in 15. It's going to be out of control. We got to talk about your sits, Dave, your actual sits.
Yeah.
Which correction, Zach Moss is a start. Dak Prescott, I've already put in Baker Mayfield over Dak in my lineup, but he is one of your sits.
I would start Baker over him. I'd start Carr over him. Jared Goff's been terrible. I'd start him. Jaden Daniels, terrible last week. I'd start him over Dak Prescott. Dak just really hasn't come through for big numbers yet this year. 1 touchdown in each of his first 2 games. Not even 15 fantasy points in a game this year. Not ready to cut him. Not going to give up on him. Just not a top 12 guy for me this week against the Baltimore Ravens.
It's interesting. The last time he's had back-to-back games sub 20 fantasy points, you got to go back to weeks 4 and 5 last year. That's how good he's been since that stretch of just consistent elite level production. He's just not getting the job done right now.
You'll see Najee Harris on the list. He's getting a lot of work, 39 touches through 2 games, but he's been pedestrian. He's not getting a lot of targets. And this Chargers run defense, I don't know if they've really been tested yet. They haven't played anybody. Raiders, Panthers. I don't know if this is a big test for them either. He's got to score in order for him to be just decent for fantasy managers. I don't want to trust him if I don't have to, and I feel the exact same way about Jalen Waddle. Lots of expectations for him coming in the season. You know why he's on this list, Jacqueline. It's because of the quarterback situation for the Miami Dolphins. I think Tyreek Hill, I think Devon Achane, I think they're going to be okay with Skylar Thompson under center. Maybe not necessarily in the case of Tyreek having as many blow-up games, but still good games. Waddle's the one who I think will be the odd man out.
Okay.
8 games he's played without Tua in his NFL career. He's averaging 5 catches and 56 yards per game. No touchdowns in those 8 games. So it's a bad track record.
And the Seattle secondary, I think they're pretty good. I think they'll be able to hang with him.
Another name on that list, Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
Why is he on there?
I think
There's a lot of expectations for him coming in as well.
It's a revenge game.
It is a revenge game. I think he's in a totally different role than where he was the last time he played against the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay.
I think the Vikings are actually worse against perimeter receivers than they are slot receivers. Diggs has been playing in the slot. And when C.J. Stroud's been under pressure, and the Vikings are going to pressure him a lot, his go-to guy this year, last year, it's been Nico Collins. Collins has the better matchup. I think Diggs he's going to be like a top 30 receiver this week, but I'd be shocked if he had more than 60 yards.
All right, okay, Jamey, as much as I hate to talk about my guy T-Law in your sits, he's on there because the Jags are 0-2. It's not looking good, and they get the arrested Bills team in prime time.
He's had some good moments. The first half against Miami, for example, but he just hasn't been consistent. And Evan Ingram probably not going to play, so that's another big piece of this passing game that's missing. I'd like to see more targets for Brian Thomas. Only 4 targets each of the first 2 games, so get him going a little bit more. And Christian Kirk obviously got to get going, but you kind of see what's happening here. And like you mentioned, this Bills defense rested, and they've been playing great. They had 3 turnovers on Tua Tagovailoa before the concussion, so it's going to be tough for Trevor Lawrence, I think, for fantasy managers to trust him, even in 2 quarterback and super flex leagues. Aaron Jones and Mike Evans are 2 big names on this list, clearly. Jones last week, less touches than Ty Chandler. Did not perform at a very high level, so Chandler could have an opportunity to steal some touches. And this Texans run defense, while they've given up a touchdown each of their first 2 games, did a great job against Jonathan Taylor in week 1, holding him to 16 carries for 48 yards. Mike Evans, guess what? You're getting Patrick Surtain this week, not pretty. So what he's done so far in 2 games, Surtain. DK Metcalf eliminated him. George Pickens eliminated him. You could say Mike Evans is better than those 2 guys. I wouldn't fight you on that. But he's only had 6 targets each of the first 2 weeks. He was disappointing last week against Detroit. Chris Godwin has emerged. You're seeing Baker Mayfield use his legs a little bit more. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a Jalen McMillan game, too. We get a couple more shots down the field to him. So Mike Evans, not a slam dunk start this week, which is tough to say, but I would sit him if you can.
Oh, I'd go with Evans, but I don't have him ranked where I've had him ranked for the first 2 weeks of the season. I just know what he's capable of doing. He can go off for 2 touchdowns.
Not against this guy, though.
Well, listen, this guy gave up a touchdown that was called back last week, a deep ball last week. Surtain's awesome. Mike Evans is awesome, too. And when awesome meets awesome, I'll still take the wide receiver over the defensive back every time. And Chandler played more than Jones last week because Jones got hurt. He left the game. He came back in.
He's still banged up.
He's still banged up. That's why he's on my sit list as well. Quentin Johnson's my guy, by the way. Picked him up in as many leagues as I possibly could. Will not start him in any of those leagues because of the matchup against the Steelers.
You guys know how this segment goes. We have to like insert our own.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi. Okay, so here's the thing. Because I've been texting Jamey, and he's normally very helpful. He's been only somewhat helpful. Okay. From listening.
Say why.
From listening, because we don't know yet.
Yes, exactly.
From listening to this segment, I have Zach Moss on my bench. Do I swap him in instead of Joe Mixon?
Not if Mixon plays.
Right,
but that's a good replacement.
But we don't know.
We don't know.
But you
don't have
3
to
more
make the
days.
decision now.
I feel like
your lineup lock on Thursday.
What is your gut telling you?
She sent me a text, all caps. What's going on with Joe Mixon? I said we gotta wait.
Joseph Mixon, actually.
No, Joseph Mixon. Yes, formal. You got formal.
I don't know.
So all no, we don't know what Amanda should.
I don't know what my hair is doing back there either.
It's all right. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out our hair.
We're all gonna do this together.
Yes,
We're in this together.
We are. Jamey, Dave, we certainly appreciate it. We'll have to check back in to figure out what to do with Mixon and Zach Moss. You
Amanda felt left out. She had to come.
No, I just get really stressed.
Our league is competitive.
Like you're carrying your IFB, you're carrying your microphone.
I know. I beat Leger last week. I didn't mention it the last segment, though.
Oh, you should have.
Humble.
What the heck? You can hear the gentleman.
I am humble. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not. You can hear him on FFT. What's coming up, fellas?
Today we previewed our AFC home games. Tomorrow will be the NFC home games. So we get you covered with everything that you need. And I believe you're doing a live stream tonight, right? For the 100
7:30 p.m. Eastern to celebrate 100,000 subscribers.
Oh, congratulations.
Look for Fantasy Football Today on YouTube. Join the party.